Good job, thank you. Thanks so much for all of your compassion. There you go. There you go. I got it. Oh, I see. Oh, thank you. Oh, no, thank you. They look like the No, thank you. I'm allergic. I'm allergic. Don't make me sick. Don't make me sick. Look at your shirt. It's Regina. Where else would you keep your Regina? Not that pocket.
I will put that on. I break it.
It's okay. No, you can eat it. I can't. That'll make me sick, yes. It won't make you sick. It'll make me sick. Contrary to the belief, I am allergic to carbs.
Yeah. The makeup blows.
Yeah, dinner though, that was the exciting. Pay for that later. Got it. He's gonna get out of the gym and escape.
And now he's moving his eyes now.
How do you know? First to Vegeta. And that's how Vegeta was made.
Here. Oh no.
You got me? Oh, no thank you.
Oh no. Look at him. Look at him. Look at that guy.
That's who I did that. Yeah, that's their favorites.
Oh, you want one?
It's funny that that was air conditioning.
Just really stuff.
It's stuffy in here.
Here's the side you shoot from the side.
I didn't know I could drive that.
Yeah, just held till the end. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. It's been a.
Oh, you just came to see.
For free, well, I guess. Good luck.
Huh?
Wonder if we should be concerned. That doesn't seem like you guys. Oh, might be more out of it.
I'm not even gonna stand the swearing.
You'll do it? Okay, I didn't want to spring it on you.
What do you think you can get?
Well, I didn't do it like when.
Right then.
You got 5 minutes.
Request the shoe officer.
We need to excuse Ron.
This week.
Ryan, yeah,
Okay, y'all, I made the motion.
okay, so different for Ryan.
I don't know what I got.
Yes, because we've already taken a
Okay, well, I believe we're ready to start the regular meeting now. We've already had an executive session as well as a study session. And so we've done the roll, but we do have another motion with regard to Mr. Liddy.
Make a motion to excuse Ryan for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Second, thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll on the motion to excuse Mr. Liddy from the executive study session and the regular meeting tonight?
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Ensler?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Motion carries. And we'd also previously excused Mr. Slagle for tonight's meeting. So next we will start with the prayer for guidance by Mayor McFarland, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Our Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, before you tonight, for another meeting of the minds of the city of Tipp City. Please watch over this council and their decisions that are made. We ask that you also lay your hand on the shoulders of all of our EMS, fire, and police personnel. Guide them in what they do, keep them safe, and also our troops. In your Son's name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, as to tonight's agenda, everyone should have had the opportunity to review the agenda. For any guests here, the agendas are by the front entrance. You can pick those up there as well as sign in for the meeting. Is there a council member that would make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Ensler?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes. Next, we have the minutes for the June 5th, 2023 City Council work session. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A second. Thank you. Are there any comments or revisions for those minutes? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schwab.
Yes.
Mr. Ensland.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger.
Yes.
President Huffman.
Yes. Next, we have the minutes of the June 5th, 2023 City Council meeting. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or revisions to those minutes? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Schwab.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
President Huffman.
Yes,
Mr. Ensland.
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger.
Yes.
thank you. Moving on, we have under presentations, proclamations, and awards, we have the swearing in of Police Officer Seth Victor. I believe Mayor McFarland.
I'm not going to hobble down, but if you would like to come up here.
Chief Adkins.
I didn't get it out.
I injured the back of my knee, that's what I was not walking down. Raise your right arm and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Seth Victor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of
the
America,
Constitution of Law of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of Law of the United States of Ohio,
the Charter and laws and ordinances
the charters, laws, and ordinances
of the City of Tipp City,
of the City of Tipp City,
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially,
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially,
and in a manner consistent
and in a manner consistent
with the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics,
with the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics,
discharge the duties of the Office of Police Officer
discharge the duties of the laws of the Office of Police Officer
of the City of Tipp City
of the City of Tipp City
in Miami County, Ohio,
in Miami County, Ohio,
to which I've been appointed.
to which I've been appointed.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Welcome, Officer Victor. Moving on to legislation, we have ordinances for second reading tonight. The first is an ordinance to amend the zoning code and the map attached thereto by changing the zoning of part of in-lot 1771 Miami County parcel G15 019-132 plus or minus 54.162 acres from light industrial to urban residential zoning classification. This was originally introduced by Mr. Liddy, who is not here tonight. Could I have another council member that is willing to sponsor this legislation?
I will.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pittenger. Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Council. This is a public hearing for an ordinance that would modify our zoning map. The property is located off of North Hyatt Street. It's directly east of the Windridge Apartments, and it's directly west of the CSX railroad tracks. It's about 54 acres in area. The action would change the zoning from its current zoning of light industrial to a proposed zoning of R1C, which is single-family residential. This rezoning request was not in accordance with the comprehensive plan, but it was recommended by Planning Board. So any modification to that recommendation would be required for the 5 of you to vote in the negative. Be glad to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Council comments, questions? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. If anyone from the public would like to speak to this ordinance, please come forward. Hearing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Oh, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I thought it was other than me.
Oh, no, you're part of the public.
I thought it was somebody else.
But if we could have your name and address.
Absolutely. J.D. Blair, 1179 East Shoup Road, Tipp City. My wife and I, Diane, have been residents of Tipp our whole life. We've got 5 kids that have come through Tipp schools. Currently we have twin 5th graders, actually 6th graders. So that's a little bit about us. If you have any questions, we're looking to rezone this light industrial zoning to residential for a number of reasons, but it's close to the schools. It's, the truck traffic, the need for downtown housing, just so we're asking for a rezone. If you have any questions.
I don't hear any, but thank you, Mr. Blair.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this legislation? Hearing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any final council comments or questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Ordinance 1623.
Next, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning code and the map attached thereto by changing the zoning of part of Outlot 1, being Miami County parcel G15 090020, 3.393 acres, part of Outlot 2, being Miami County parcel G15 090040, 0.492 acres, and part of Outlot 6.3 being Miami County parcel G15 092 900, 1.993 acres located on North Hyatt Street from office service to urban residential zoning classification. This was originally introduced by Mr. Slagle, who is also not here tonight. Is there another council member that would be willing to sponsor this legislation?
After you. I'll sponsor it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ensland. Mr. Eggleston.
Yes, just agree or agree. Strict. Now you got it, I got it.
Council, another public hearing regarding rezoning. This is a group of properties. It's 3 separate properties, but they have a total of 5.9 acres. It's directly south of the Wind Ridge Apartments, north of the Tipp Seniors Facility, and it's right on North Hyatt Street. And this action would change the existing zoning from office service to R1C single-family residential. Again, it's not recommended by the comprehensive plan, but it was recommended by planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Are there any council comments or questions? Hearing none, thank you. The public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak to this legislation? If you'd like to speak, come forward.
I just want to make sure. Do I need to do my name again?
Typically, you can just identify yourself.
Okay.
She has the rest of your card.
Okay. I just want to come back up to have any questions on this piece.
Okay. I don't believe so, but thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Blair.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this legislation? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Ordinance 1723.
Next, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning code and map attached thereto by changing the zoning of in-lot 2690, Miami County parcel G15 021307, located at the northeast corner of Hyatt Street and Park Avenue, plus or minus 2.87 acres, from office service to multifamily residential zoning classification. This was introduced by Mr. Slagle, who is not here tonight. Is there another council member that would be willing to sponsor this legislation?
I'll sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. Mr. Eggleston.
Mr. Spring?
Another zoning redo for the zoning map. This particular property is about 3 acres in area, a little less. It's right there at the corner of Park and Hyatt. It's an empty lot right now. This also was not in accordance with the comprehensive plan, but it was recommended by planning board to change the zoning from office service to multifamily residential, R3. Be glad to address any questions.
Questions for Mr. Spring? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Spring.
Point of information, this lot has sat for 30 years. A couple businesses have tried to go on it until they found out that there's a sewer line that dissects the lot. So transferring to a multifamily use that can get around that sewer line easement makes the best sense for this lot.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. Any other council comments? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak to this? You can just identify yourself again for our record.
J.D. Blair.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to be clear, this multifamily is not for rentals. This is for like home, I have a rendition. It's kind of what we're thinking.
So what would you identify those as? Are
Like-
these single-family townhouses that are
Single-family
attached?
townhomes like brownstones.
Or like Thornburg Place and all of that, yeah.
How many
Kinda.
going to be?
Well, we haven't even discussed that because the easement, there's gonna have to be some give and take. There's probably gonna end up being a lot of green space there. So, because the gas line runs diagonal through the property, so it takes some engineering to figure out how many units. It's not gonna be an abundance, I can tell you that. There's not enough room.
Is there parking in the back of these, or where? Or is there
Yeah, it'd be a rear entry with garage, yeah. Any other questions?
Facing park, probably, or?
Facing park, but coming off of Don Davis Way, as far as an entrance would go. Thanks.
And is there anything that the city's going to be doing to have to assist with this in terms of streets or anything else? I mean,
No, there wouldn't be any streets, it'd be a private drive back from off of Don Davis Way and then into, garages and things.
what about traffic impact? Is there any concern for that? I don't know how many you anticipate building.
Yeah,
This is
I mean, it's
10
3
units.
acres. I would foresee something like probably smaller than Canaan Circle if you're familiar with that. It had rear entry garages and I think there's 16 units in that total. I don't think 16 units it's probably less than that.
Okay.
But like I said, we haven't done any engineering on it, so.
Once they do, then they'll have to go through that process of, distances and
Yeah.
all that stuff, so until you really get some submitted, it'll be difficult to tell you exactly what'll happen and have the access on.
I wouldn't foresee any traffic issues from that amount of houses coming off. There's multiple ways to get it once you get the park. So.
Is there anything else we should be considering with regard to this zoning change?
I guess you give off the cuff, it's usually that when you're rezoning, you don't zone for a project, you zone because that property, the best use for it. And I think in this case, because of that gas line, creates issues and you just can't just throw these townhomes in there, so it's probably a better use of the property. Not that whatever Mr. Blair gave us could change, we don't know, but it really comes to council. Do you feel this is the best use of that property? And as long as obviously he has to follow all his zoning requirements and all those types of things, that for that location is that a good use? Maybe we shouldn't zone for a project more that doesn't seem that that's a good use of that property.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Thank you.
Any other council? Or, well, I guess the public hearing is still open. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak to this? Hearing no one, the public hearing is closed. Are there any final council comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mayor McFarland,
Yes.
President Huffman,
Yes.
Mr. Ensler,
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Ordinance 1823. Moving on to resolutions, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Tipp City exempted village schools to provide police services and share costs. Could I have a sponsor for this resolution or motion?
Oh, motion.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Eggleston.
Yes, each year or two, we go through this agreement to provide officers to different sporting events and those things. As time's gone up, the schools have been contributing more to this cost. So Chief Atkins sat down with them and let them know what the rates were and what that split would be, and they are in agreement with the agreement. So we're asking the council to approve the resolution tonight upon a public hearing.
Are there any council comments related to this? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone from the public like to speak to this resolution? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll? Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman? Yes. Resolution 2623. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase 25 transformers for the electric department from Reed City Powerline at a cost not to exceed $140,575. Do I have a motion to approve?
I will.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes, we'd like to purchase 25 transformers. We're finding that it's cheaper to buy them in lots of 25 than it is for a larger number. Mr. Mack has been working hard doing all the projects, so you may see some more of these pop up along the way. We would like council to approve the resolution as presented. And again, you can see it's a 38-week lead time to get these. So there's 72 for the individual is the cheapest. So the more you pay, the quicker you get them. But 72 for lead time at $140,075 is what we'd like to go with compared to $245,575 at the 38-week lead time. So there's very few companies out there that can supply these. So again, we're asking council to approve the resolution.
We've bought from this company before.
Any other council comments or questions? Hearing none, the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to speak to this resolution? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman? Yes. Resolution 2723. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase one truck for the electric department from Utility Truck Equipment through the State of Ohio Purchasing Plan at a cost not to exceed $271,843 and declaring personal property owned by the city of Tipp City as surplus property and no longer useful in the general operation of the city. Do I have a motion to
I'll sponsor.
A second?
Second.
Any Mr. Eggleston?
If council has specific questions, we've asked the resolution be approved as presented. Excuse me. In-depth questions regarding the piece of equipment, Mr. Mack should be able to answer those.
Thank you. Are there any council comments?
We're comfortable with a Ford cabin chassis this time versus a Freightliner like everything else is. Not that I'm bad mouthing Ford, I want to make it clear.
Yeah, and that's correct. That is different from our usual spec. There was a substantial cost difference between the two.
lead time's different, and from what we're hearing from some other folks in the industry who've gone with the Ford, they've had good success with that. So no concerns. It is different from what we have done in the past.
Okay.
And the equipment you're replacing is the one that you've had trouble with, it's in the staff report. You're keeping that in, that's operational now though, and you're keeping it in service?
Technically, right now, today, it is not operational. It is getting some work done on it, but yes, it will be in service for the next roughly 2 years until we receive the new piece of equipment.
Okay. Are there any other council comments or questions? Anything for Mr. Mack? Thank you, Mr. Mack.
Thank you.
Moving on to the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak to this? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes.
Resolution 2823.
We have no ordinances for first reading or motions on the agenda tonight. We do have a few items on miscellaneous. Mr. Eggleston, would you like to address those?
Yes, questions are raised about the interchange beautification project timeline. At this point, the plans have been submitted back to ODOT for the beautification. This is their second review. We made minor changes. We're expecting here, let's just say by the end of June, we should have those back, if not sooner. Once those are completed, then we will be able to put that project out to bid. Now, this is separate from the painting. The painting specifications and plans have been submitted for their first review. Again, I can't tell you exactly when those will come back. That's first round is really usually about 30 days, but if ODOT's backed up, it could be as long as 2 months. So as time goes on, I'm obviously trying to get that information, pass it on to council. The other thing a little bit with the painting was, is there a specific color council would like? I know he sent the rendering of the malt color, but would you like with other colors? If you have something in mind, because basically Lynn from KFC said, look, it's whatever your palette is, whatever you like, they can mix the paint and put it on there. They just suggested the darker red to go with the brick.
Can you bring in a sample of the brick then? If the paint can be customized, can we see what? Because I think the online rendering is a little difficult based on the color monitor and things like that we may be getting.
Sure, I'll see if I can get a brick.
I know there are a lot of different bricks, so we can see what they
Well,
tend to use. Because I think the indication we had at last discussion was that we wanted something that maybe reflected more of what was going to be on the sign to coordinate those.
Yeah, that's the rendering I sent is that color.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll see if she can get a brick sample. She can look at it and see how that color blends in.
And then, so June, it's going out to bid on the landscape aspect,
No,
is that right?
basically we're getting our second review back. The first one, they had minor changes, they resubmitted it. ODOT said it would be either mid-June or the end of June. We would get those back. Once we get them back, then we'll be able to put that out to bid and give you, again, whatever they suggest, whether that's, probably might be about, let's say 6 to 8 weeks for the companies to be able to put that package together and then get them in. But like I say, it's all contingent on when we get those plans back. So again, once we get them, I'll let you know, and then get that timeline to say they're going to be bid out on this date. We expect the bids to be back on this date, and then it's really sitting down. So I think I promised council that we would have a work session, and you could look at the bids. Again, you could modify them if you so choose based on those bids. So that'll be the final step before the project moves forward.
Would it make sense to do a review of the plan before we bid it, so that we are getting an accurate bid for what the scope of the project would be?
Not really. I mean, basically, it's going to come down to is some deducts, whether you want the signs or whether you want to do 2 quads, not 4 quads. The vegetation that they spec, the bricks that they spec, that's all set. So
if we change it, you would not have to rebid this?
Well, we'll have deduct, correct. So if you say, look, we're going to put off the sign, then that's a deduct. Oh, by the way, we can't afford to do this, we'll do the exit ramps, but we don't want to do the entry ramps. The only problem that can happen if you delay is, again, if ODOT change their specs, then you're back to changing those and bidding them out again, which may be different. So those are the things you'll have to discuss or figure out sort of what direction you want to go. But again, once we get that bid in, we can deduct a few, like I say, the quads and go from there. It won't be, hey, let's reduce the brick, let's reduce the plantings. It'll be more extreme to say the entrance ramps on, we don't want to do those, or the signs we don't want to do.
And when do you anticipate the work would start? Provided bids are early fall, it sounds like.
Could be.
At council, then when would the work start?
I mean, the best time would be to do it close to the fall when we get a little bit of rain, but everything goes dormant. But again, that would be sitting down with the contractor and saying, what's your schedule, getting plants, getting all these things around to be able to get them delivered and ready to go. But again, that's part of that bid process when they have their construction meeting for them to present us with the schedules and say, here's what we're going to do, barring obviously weather. If it rains, nobody's going to be working. So, but it'll progress along. We'll keep council in the loop on that.
And then, I don't know if council, does anyone else have questions about the actual landscaping aspect of it? I had a question about the fence, so can you explain where we're at on the fence?
Well, the fence is part of the painting project, okay, which basically ODOT says you can have the gray chain link, you can have the black chain link, but if you want to put up a fancy fence, so to speak, something other than that, with a sign, those types of things, then you have to basically remove the abutments and start over because of the wind loads. They're going to make you re-engineer those to take care of the wind loads. So, you can do that now, which will certainly drive up the cost of what you're doing now between just painting. But again, we could talk about that. This was to paint the abutment, paint the steel, blend it in, change out the chain link to black chain link, or unless somebody wants green, whatever, but change that chain link out, they can do that, and then that's the scope of the project. If you want to go further, then we'd have to modify the drawings to say, okay, but that's going to be considerably more expensive, to be honest with you.
Did you find out that you cannot attach anything? There was a question about whether we can put, like in Findlay, they have lettering that says like, welcome to Findlay and Flag City that look like they're attached letters to a chain link fence.
We can't do that.
You
because
cannot do that?
wind loads, that the wind blows that solid, it puts more pressure on the fence. I mean, I'm not sure it makes that much difference, but apparently ODOT says yes, it does. It creates more pressure on that fence and they have a good chance of coming loose and then falling on the vehicles. That's why they said, okay, we can take all that abutment off, redo it, the anchor bolts, everything, and then decided to have. But remember, even if you put up a picket fence, so to speak, you still have to have the chain link so that they can't drop items through those slots. So you're still going to see it, but you won't see it as well. But then remember, 10 to 15 years, that bridge is slated to be removed and upgraded. And that's when you'll be able to put Tipp City in the concrete, like would better look like Brookville, so to get those imprints, and hopefully widen the walkways for bicycles and stuff to 5 foot. So that'll be a major upgrade.
Well, thanks for
The fence and painting, is that a separate
Yes.
project, separate schedule?
Yes, they felt that you're going to get a better price in combining it with the landscaping. There's 2 different things, and they thought you'd get a better price on having that separate. So we said, okay, but along with that, don't forget, is traffic control for I-75 because they're going to have to close off lanes to paint it. So,
That's great. Thanks.
well, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I think overall, depending on how this goes and the dollars involved, I think it will dress up the interchange. I know some people disagree with it, but sometimes that's what people see when they come to your community and makes you want to pull off a little bit. So I think they came up with a nice design for council that will be attractive. So
if there are no other questions about that, I see fire EMS staff are also here.
yeah. And again, if you the chief house said we're hoping by August or so, September, to have the full-time staff on board. We do still recruit for part-time, that's ongoing. So I that'll take place, again, as quickly as we can, getting through that civil service process. I think the interviews were the days, if I'm not mistaken, this week.
Cameron Howard, yes, that's accurate. We're doing all the interviews this week. We have 12 interviews scheduled, personnel that's already passed a written test. And then from there, on July 12th, we're going to have an assessment center that's already scheduled. And then after July 12th, we do all the final preparations, the background checks, all that. Make sure civil service can certify the list, and the list is appropriate per their standards and regulations. And then we'll make offers once that list is approved by civil service. That's the reason I can't give you an exact date in August, because I got to, make sure all those steps that have variables in them are accomplished appropriately.
And then there's probably a time period for training and equipping the new
Yes. If council remembers, and for those that weren't on council yet, Monroe Township received or used a lot of their COVID money, if you will. They bought a large amount of gear, so even though it doesn't fit perfect, we can get them geared up really quickly, and we have an orientation scheduled of at least 2 weeks with the new personnel to make sure that they understand our processes before we just put them onto the shift.
And then, can you tell us more about the present staffing? Because it's a little bit alarming, some of the comments about out of service or how many do you have on the roster now?
Currently, we have 41 on the roster. I'm looking at my computer, I don't know why. Of my software, we have 41 people on the roster. We had another resignation letter tendered today, and of the people we're interviewing, 5 of them are internal personnel that are already part-time. We're hiring as fast as we can with HR, with Janice's help, and payroll and the background checks with the police department helps us out. So we try to keep everything internal and keep it moving as fast as possible. But as soon as we get an application, AC processes it, we get interviews done. It's taken somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks to get somebody on board. And then those personnel with no experience, it takes quite a while to replace the people that are leaving. The people that are leaving are 2 to 4 years on. They've received all their education and certificates, and they were able to gain full-time employment elsewhere. There's no short fix for this. That's the reason we're always searching and researching and looking for viable options to try to get as many people here as possible. Some people in the industry would argue that even the part-time system's dying because the schools aren't putting out enough people, and the people that they are putting out are being hired that much quicker full-time, and they're electing not to work part-time at all. So long story short, we're budgeted for 6 personnel per day. Our average is just over 3, and that includes our trainees. And we're averaging 7 calls a day, and 20% of those at least are overlapping. I could give you all kinds of anecdotes. I could give you my emergency reporting software, and I could show you exactly where we've missed calls, where we fell short of citizens. But I can also show you from the state of Ohio that on days where it all works and we got enough people that can respond back to the station, we do a great job. But the continual churn of people is just, it's short of amazing. The past year, it's a 67% turnover. And it's just really difficult to keep people here that are trained and experienced enough to handle the calls.
And are you doing any kind of exit interviews or getting information to identify if there's something else that we could be doing to improve retention?
Yes, I am, and that's where the things like, I want to thank council for approving the things like the permanent part-time to where they get paid time off, to where they have some sick leave, so that way they can schedule a vacation and still earn their paycheck. Those came out of exit interviews. Having full-time in place is one of the things that's come out of the interviews. I just had a young man last week. He said, "Chief, I wanted to work for you, but I got a full-time offer from another jurisdiction, and I can't pass up a guarantee for something that may or may not happen." So even though they see the plan, even though they see the resolution, it hasn't happened yet, so that puts skepticism in the back of their mind that are we going to carry through with it in the long run? So that doesn't help. Those are the main ones. The folks, some folks are leaving because they are full-time somewhere else, and they've been working about 5 years. They filled their short-time need for their own personal needs, and they're ready to have their time off. Or like today, I was told I just want to concentrate on my one department. I don't want to concentrate on multiple departments. And I never did answer the question. I apologize. Yes, we're doing exit interviews. We don't force exit interviews, but if they choose to do it, they're more than welcome. And I make sure they know that if they're not comfortable speaking to me, that they can speak to the manager, assistant chief, our part-time lieutenants, other people inside the organization that they may feel comfortable speaking to, because not everybody has a comfort level to speak to the boss.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your explanation, X. I know, speaking for myself, I think other council members, we want to see this succeed. Be able to provide the emergency services that we need to here. So if there's anything else that, council needs to be doing to address that?
I think it's just, I know everybody wants to just assume and go, but it's just going to take some time to get there. Just bear with us. Again, I think you can see the plan. We are going to get there by August, September, and Chief Howell and I have been talking that we know that during budget time, obviously they're going to have the other 4 in there if they're already, to where hopefully we could speed up the process a little bit, knowing that councils during our budget discussions, we know the other 4 are coming on, we can start that process a little earlier as far as getting ads out and getting those people lined up, so at the first of the year they can start taking their tests and doing what they need to be to get them on board. So there's ways to do it once we're comfortable with the budget, but again, it just takes time, and it doesn't seem like a lot of kids are seeing this as a career. And I think Chief's talked about once in a while to, get into schools, career days, and try to get minds interested.
We've had staff. Edison started an EMT program actually during COVID. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Bless them, because they did a great job at it. We have one of our staff members is an instructor there, and she has taken our ambulance up, the one that's the third one, not the 2 that are in service. She took the 3rd one up and made sure at their career day that they could see what we have and what we can offer from Tipp City. I went to Sinclair's last graduation, which was in April, I believe, maybe early May. So we're going to the schools that we're invited to and attempting to get into those other locations that we ask to be invited to. So not pushy, but let them know that we're here and we're interested in being part of their program.
So,
and we have a wonderful thing with, another thing with Edison is they do their skill evaluations here. So they have clinical time, just like multiple other medical professions, and they can do their clinical time here. We have had really good success on once the student from Edison comes in, does their clinical time with our personnel, they seem to appreciate the atmosphere, and we get a lot of applications from that. We attempted to come to an agreement with Sinclair, and just Sinclair's established nature, they didn't need us as much as we needed them. They have plenty of clinical sites, so we're on a unofficial waiting list to potentially be involved with Sinclair at some point.
So we're doing everything we can to get our name out there and get people interested. So,
and by no means do I want to disparage the young men and women that we have on the department now. They do everything they can to the best of their knowledge and experience and certification. And I would say our young people have to make decisions that most people with that level of experience don't have to make on a regular basis, because they have some kind of senior person or some kind of officer with them that can make those decisions. It's akin to the new ER tech with a medical doctor. You know, as an ER tech, I know just enough to help the patient, but I need the doctor to direct me. We have those ER techs, we call them EMTs. We don't have anybody there to direct them at the moment. Yes, you can call on a phone or a radio and follow protocol, but still when you're by yourself, you're inexperienced, and that's new to you, that's a really tough breakthrough to start making those decisions on a regular basis.
Well, as long as we're doing everything we can, and if there's a need for council to do anything differently, certainly we want to be informed.
Oh, yeah.
Like manager said, we'll at budget time, there might be some requests there.
Okay, thank you. The new direction regarding supermajority voting.
If I remember right, I heard Councilmember Ryan say, is there something, does council want to look at that 5-2 vote that you need to override the planning board? Would you like to, and here's where it comes into, not us board staff, but does council want the planning board to look at that and make a recommendation? Do you want to keep it as a 5-2 vote that you have to override the decision? Just a little direction that the council would like to have that modified to a 4-3, then we can start the process with the planning board and eventually bringing that recommendation to council and with legislation. So again, it was just some things we heard and didn't know if that was something the direction we wanted to go or not. So we're willing to do that if you see fit.
That strikes me as an opportunity for a brief study session. I mean, if we're operating, I mean, if the boards are providing good input to us, to the council, and they're doing their jobs properly, I mean, it looks like it's in place right now to respect those decisions. And so if a supermajority would be required to take exception to what was theoretically a thoughtful process.
So I think it should stay supermajority.
Well, if there's value in considering it to change it to a simple majority, I think we ought to talk about it in greater depth than just up here.
I mean, I'm a little more simple on it than that, but is okay. So what? Again, the only thing that happens here is, as you said, which I think, okay, if you respect their decision, but if they made the wrong decision, it's hard for you to overturn that decision, or if you disagree with it. So, I mean, simplistically, are you happy with the fact that you have to have a 5-2 to overturn that decision? If you disagree with it, or do you rather have a simple majority to say, well, wait a minute, are we going to get that? I mean, with the information you want, I don't know how much deeper I can get in a work session, but I can figure something out. But it's kind of really what's coming down to. I think Ryan figured, well, gee, we should have been able to overturn this one. It's really simple. I said, well, it's something we have to talk about. So,
I understand the point of view. I also come back to what we've been debating about this entire council for a year and a half is, are we operating effectively, hand in glove, council and the boards together? We've made some improvements that you could make an argument that said we still have a ways to go. And those types of interactions ought to be evaluated in conjunction, in my view.
That's what I would think. Maybe we shouldn't isolate it to this one issue, but rather go back to how are we being effective as a whole in our governance, starting with the boards who first see these things, our appointment of board members. I think it would do us, it would be helpful to meet some of those people because we do have like an application process and we review that, and Mr. Schwab and I had reached out to a number of people. That was a new process this year for us. But maybe when they do come on board, have them come to a council meeting, just introduce themselves might be a good thing so that we can associate, a face with this name and understand who we're working with. I know we do get the minutes from the boards and the agendas, which is helpful, but, there's also probably a lot that isn't captured in those, so maybe to be better informed ourselves would be a good thing.
And again, it's just a little direction that really the majority of council feels there's an issue there, or they don't feel there's an issue. That's kind of what it really comes down to. And so again, we can have a brief discussion at a work session again if and maybe Mr. Moody's got a little more input on it than we're aware of. But again, I just thought, well, if it's something we really want to move forward with, Matt could go to the planning board and say, hey, here's council like you to look at this and say, what's reasoning or what's your recommendation, but that's fine at this point.
Before we move on, Mr. Mayor McFarland, did you have something else to say on that topic?
I don't think it's an issue. I think it was designed and put in there that if we don't, to override one of the boards has to have some kind of caveat in there to where it's a super majority to go over it. If you just go to a simple majority, who's to say anything the boards want to put out there? If 4 people don't like it, they're going to overthrow it. And that's taking everything away from the boards, and that's why we have the boards. And that's why they have put in there the supermajority to override. You have to have some respect for the boards. And I'm not in favor of changing it. And if it comes up for a vote, I'll vote against it.
Does anyone else have anything on this? I don't think so, but if Mr. Lydia brought it up originally, perhaps touch base with him and see if he thinks, there's more to add to that discussion since he wasn't able to be here tonight.
So you'd rather I play off ahead? If he says he'd like to have a work session, otherwise let sleeping dogs lie, so to speak. Okay. Well, I'm kind of hearing. Okay. The D moratorium on self-storage facilities. I know there are some communities that are doing this. We just almost had another project over west of Menards, across the street from them, that's in zone industrial. The individual couldn't acquire the property. Mr. Spring had some concerns that is this something that really the community needs. I think the Centerville's looking at this. Also, Troy's looking at it to place a moratorium until they can get work with the planning board and find out if you want more stringent standards or rules on these so that they're just not popping up everywhere. I mean, again, I know Mr. Spring did the presentation one time. We've got a lot of self-storage. They're easy to put up. They make money, but are they really a benefit to the community when you really don't have jobs? You need a property without jobs. If you have one person on site, that's about it. So I think communities are saying to some degree, enough's enough. What do we do to regulate these a little more? Because they could have gone all the way down from our substation basically to Pauling's property along Kenna. And that's, again, some industrial that we have that would better fit a smaller factory or something that creates jobs. So we're just asking if that's something council feels that's worth looking into, then we would get planning board or to go ahead and look at that and then bring forth any recommendations to council and possibly pass legislation. But right now, I think council could go ahead and place a moratorium next council meeting. We could prepare legislation to do that while the planning board's looking at it. Place a moratorium for a year or so, or a year and a half, whatever, while we're trying to look at that. But the property that we're even looking at is part of our uptown area that we really don't think we want to start seeing storage units. But again, we're asking if that's something council would consider, and we can move forward with legislation at the next meeting.
don't know. I wouldn't indicate an opinion one way or another on this right now based on what we have, besides maybe send us a little bit more, maybe put on a study session. If you need to get an indication, we could actually put on, for discussion and comment before moving forward with an agenda item as legislation.
Okey-dokey. Does anybody, just let council know if anybody does do it, and there could be storage units there, so. Just,
You're speaking about the area over,
by Menards and Kenna, next to the tennis facility.
what was the impact of the zoning that we voted on around that before?
You voted so that Menards couldn't build the storage across from them to the south. Now the property west of them is zone industrial, which allows storage facilities, storage rental units, which at this point, if anybody can acquire that property, they could put in rental storage units.
To the south.
To the west side of Kenna from basically our substation or the apartments there, Tweedwood to 571, or at least up to Pauline's property to the back. Those two parcels are zoned industrial, which means they could put self-storage. Again, it's a moratorium, it's just the ability to look at that before anybody does buy it. It's storage units in there, but again, council's desire is to, I don't know how much more we'll have to look on July. I can have on a study session unless we start earlier. But again, we could do two things. I could get up, I can tell you how many at a study session. We could have the legislation prepared to have a moratorium on it. Council could add it to the agenda that night if they so choose. Like I said, there's a lot of communities looking at this saying, this is just getting out of hand. But I'd be happy to do that. Let me do that. Like I say, it's a concern staff has. This has the potential of happening, but if council feels that's appropriate, like I say, we normally just don't do legislation until the next one, but you're probably talking about ordinance, which means now you're 1-2 readings in 30 days before anything takes effect. Unless you place it as an emergency, possibly, we could, so.
We try to discourage anything on an emergency basis and also discourage any indication of vote tonight on this issue, because really to advance this conversation, that's where we're going with that. So.
And I'm not asking you to vote, I'm just asking you to say, is this, I think there's some urgency in doing this, not just following the traditional, okay, let's have a work session. Then August, we have 2 readings. September, it finally kicks in because you got 2.5 months or better right now, 3 months in which something could happen. If council's comfortable, it's just direction to say, let's have a work session, prepare the legislation, we'll decide whether we want to move forward with it or not. If you're comfortable with that, again, it doesn't mean you're going to vote it in or vote it down,
Right.
It down, but
That's why my suggestion was, let's talk about work session, get it on an agenda so it's properly noticed to everyone, and then if we end up with legislation, we can discuss the approach then. I think that's probably the most helpful.
Okey-dokey.
As a council member, I'd appreciate that.
Oh, appreciate you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So if we're done with miscellaneous, we're moving on to citizens' comments on items not on the agenda. Is there anyone that has a comment that would like to come forward? It looks like you are the only one, but if you could give us your name and address, please.
Tasha Weaver, 4325 Picotoy Road. I'm coming on behalf of the Downtown Tipp City Partnership, and we had 3 great events the last 3 weeks, and we really wanted to share our appreciation to the street department and the electric department and all of our first responders, because they help our events stay safe and they make them great. So, any questions?
What were the 3 events?
We had our first farmers market. We brought that back. And we had the Jeep event. We had over 550 Jeeps. And then we had vintage in the village.
Well, I'm glad to hear that those went well. Farmers Market is continuing through the summer. When is the last one?
We have them in July, August, and September.
Saturday mornings?
Friday evenings.
Friday.
From 5 to 8.
Okay. Try to be there. Thank you.
Great, thank
Appreciate
you.
being here. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Hearing no one, moving on to council comments and city manager. Mr. Schwab, do you have anything?
Nothing for me this evening.
Mr. Ensler?
I just want to add to that, the farmer's market is on Friday night, July 7th. It's the first Friday of each month. And I was at the Vintage in the Village and it went great. So thank you.
Ms. Pittenger?
Tip City Seniors is having their open house Saturday, July the 8th, 2023 from 1 to 4 p.m. I'd like to see everyone attend, see the renovations and all the new additions that's been made.
Thank you. Mayor McFarland?
Yes. On the 12th, there was 2 ribbon cuttings that day. The first one fair downtown, celebrating their 5-year anniversary. Here in Tipp, I did not go upstairs, but I hear it's quite lovely up there. Which therefore I didn't partake in the donuts thing. So, then at 4:30 or 4:45, another ribbon cutting celebrating the library's 100th birthday with their party in the streets and everything. Good time had by all. On the 13th that morning, I sat in on a discussion with the new superintendent for Tipp City Schools, and 11 o'clock attended the CIC meeting here at the city building. On the 14th, I covered for Ms. Pittenger at 7 p.m. for the Miami Valley Council. Had representatives from MVRC there, talking about grants that are available for charging stations and the like. Then on the 15th, the Miami County Mayor's Managers Breakfast, attended that. Lively discussion as usual. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the Vintage in the Village due to a surprise birthday party for my wife's 80th birthday. And I felt that took priority over Vintage in the Village. At least she told me it did. So I apologize. I appreciate you all for the golf cart, but and that's all I have. Oh, I'd also like to congratulate Seth Victor on his appointment as a police officer for the city of Tipp City. I'm sure he'll do a fine job for the city. It's always nice to swear in new employees. And with that, I'll yield my time back to you.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland. I thought the library celebration was really well attended. We also they had Tipp City Pizza, had donated, Bodega donated ice cream, so it was really a nice community event. So appreciated seeing that happen. And also welcome to Mr. Moran, who will be the new superintendent. There was a very well attended meeting of people from the community there. It was a meet and greet, so that was really helpful to attend. Our next meeting is going to be July 17th, so that's just a reminder we're on summer session. So check the calendar and the website for the agenda for that meeting. With that, Mr. Eggleston?
It's getting easier, isn't it? Just keep in mind again, tomorrow there is a road closure for Miami County down here on Evanston as they replace a culvert. That'll go from June 20th to the 23rd. So if you're traveling down that road, you might have to find a detour. so don't be surprised. Also, the new water sewer building is expected to be completed March 11, 2024. Staff's working on a groundbreaking for council to start this off. Chamberlain Pond, there's some gravel that needs to be put down for the parking lot at this point in time. Signage, some that says no swimming or motorized vehicles. I guess that is a warning talking to Fish and Wildlife. Do not run motorized vehicles in that pond because there's trees in there, there's all kinds of habitat. Fingers that you saw coming out are different heights. That is not a flat bottom. You put anything in there going any speed, you may hit something that you really don't want to. So, I mean, you really don't want the EMS having to go out there to help you. So, fishing's fine, just be careful. Bids for the parking, secondary parking lot down at Kyle and the 4th and 5th Street water line replacement will be bid July 11th, we'll be opening up those bids. So hopefully get those projects going. HR, the address place, we're looking until June 28th, I believe, to get those responses back. And July 28th, sorry, correct, and start that process filtering through to start doing interviews. We have posted that on multiple websites, Sherm, as well as OneNow and some others. Also talked to the township on the corner of 571-25A and the high grass you notice there. They have sent a notice to the property owner, so hopefully that will get mowed within the next 10 days. And help clean up that corner a little bit. So, as you can see, our city project between me and the police department is slowly progressing. So hopefully tomorrow you'll see more block laid on that project and keep moving.
When is the signal upgrade supposed to start? 25A and 571.
Wait, just right there real quick.
Yeah, we had we're having a pre-construction meeting, I believe, next week. But due to lead times to the signal equipment, we don't anticipate it to be completed until sometime early next year, February, March timeframe.
Supply chain's still moving a little slow, but that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ensland?
Yes.
Mrs. Pittenger?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mayor McFarland?
Yes.
President Huffman?
Yes. We're adjourned.
Nobody wanted to talk here.
I'll send you a one topic email. Tomorrow.
No, wait,
Yes.